Welcome to Changing the Game, where bold leaders, rule breakers, and trailblazers drop the playbook and share how they lead, win, and shake things up. If you've ever felt stuck between the life you have and the life you actually want, welcome to Nobody Cares Club. This is a podcasting community for people willing to change directions, take risks, start over, build something meaningful, and stop waiting until they feel ready. Because the truth is, nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Everyone's too busy worrying about themselves. I'm Jordan Duran. I'm a former Division I athlete, storyteller, wellness lover, and someone currently figuring it out in real time, just like you are. Each week, we'll have conversations around ambition, identity, career pivots, wellness, creativity, and what it actually looks like to build a life that feels aligned instead of just impressive on paper. Some episodes will be interviews with founders, athletes, creators, and people choosing unconventional paths. Others will just be honest conversations about growth, uncertainty, and becoming who you want to be before you feel fully qualified. If you've been craving more courage, honesty, or adventure, maybe a little bit more intention, or just a reminder that you're allowed to change your mind and build life differently, you're in the right place. Welcome to Nobody Cares Club. All right, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Tammie Bennett. She's a mindset and running coach, creative entrepreneur, and host of the Show Up Society podcast. Tammie ran cross country and track at the University of North Carolina and went on to law school at Pepperdine. She's built a successful art licensing business with products in over 100 stores nationwide and has spent more than 13 years coaching runners of all ages. Now, at the heart of what Tammie does is helping women get unstuck. Through mindset coaching and honest conversations, she teaches people how to show up for themselves consistently so that they can achieve the goals that matter to them most. I'm really excited to have you here, Tammie. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
I'm so pumped. I loved our first conversation together, and we have the law school background in common, and we both practiced law. So I'm very excited to dive into that. But yeah, let's just kick it off, lay the groundwork for our listeners right away. So you ran cross country at UNC and studied journalism. So I guess what was that chapter of your life like for you, or what did it really teach you that you still use today?
Yeah, I think especially the sports aspect of it taught me resilience, right? Like people know, like, you're an athlete. Things happen sometimes that we don't love, right? We have disappointing performances. We get injured. We get sick. If in my case, running, I didn't run well sometimes, and it's really disappointing. And I think the great part about being an athlete is learning how to get yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going, and to not let it define you and to not let it keep you down. And so, I think that's one of the greatest lessons people can learn just in life in general is that resilience and how to bounce back. So I'm really grateful for sports for teaching me that.
Yeah, it really does lay the groundwork so well for that resilience piece for sure. What led you to run at UNC?
Well, I was born in North Carolina, and my mom went to UNC. Actually, she had me before she graduated undergrad. So we lived in married student housing on campus, and I watched Michael Jordan play at the, on campus when he was at Carolina. So that was really cool. We didn't know he was going to be Michael Jordan like that big at the time, but I still remember.
That is sick.
Yeah,
and then people can say that. That's really cool.
Yeah, really cool. And then she went to med school at Carolina also. So I would go on campus with her, and I just loved the campus. And then, they were, nice enough to let me run for them. It was a really good experience, and I had a really good time.
That's awesome. How was it competing in an individual sport? Because I played team sports my whole life. That's a different perspective almost, because you're teaches you that resilience, and it's just you out there. So how did you kind of pump yourself up in those times where you needed a little extra motivation or discipline, or just to get out of training?
Well, here's the tricky thing. Cross country especially is actually a team sport, and you actually get scored as a team. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And so it really is that, they score the first 5 people to cross the finish line. And so it is you want to be one of those top 5 people and score points. And the more people, so you want a lower score in cross country, right? So if you get first place, you get 1 point. If you get second place, you get 2 points. So you want to beat as many people in the race as you can to get the better score for your team. So it actually is a lot of that same kind of I want to show up for my teammates. I want to be a part of this victory. So there is still a lot of team aspect to it. And even in track, you score points in the races for the overall team, point
Right.
score to win. But I think, and even when training, like so much of the training is with your team, like you're going on long runs together. So I think it's not as individual of a sport as people think. And I really drew on that team aspect a lot. Because in high school I was the only girl on the team for a part of the time, and so it really, really was individual. So I was really craving that team connection, and so I really focused on the team part a lot more than just the individual part.
Yeah. Okay. I actually had no idea that
Yeah, most people don't know. Yeah,
sport as a team sport. I knew sure there was like that component in track, obviously, because you have your individual and then the team sport. But yeah, cross country, that's really interesting. So you did really lean on the team effort, and I'm sure that has really, really impacted you too in your coaching career, like all
yeah,
the lessons you learned from that. But before we dive into that, I do want to just dive into your law school background a little bit. Did you know
right.
that you were going to go to law school when you were in undergrad, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I did not know at all. I graduated college, and I had my journalism and mass communications degree, and I was just kind of stuck. And I'm like, I don't really know what I want to do. And I'm like, but law school sounds interesting, and that's like responsible, and everybody will think that's a good idea, and my parents will be so proud. And so I literally, I worked for I think I worked for a year after after undergrad, took the LSAT, applied to law school, and started, like the next year, because it was just sort of like a holding pattern, like this might be the answer. And it's really funny because the first day of law school, like we had to introduce ourselves and stuff, and I would say at least half of the people in my class were all like, yeah, I didn't really know what else to do with my life, so that's why I'm here. Like there were so many people that did it because like we didn't know what else to do, and it was like nice and responsible, and like people looked good on it. Yeah,
That's so interesting, Tammie. That's exactly why I went to law school too. It was like I didn't
yeah,
know what I wanted to do with my life,
yeah.
but I almost had the opposite experience in law school. I felt like there was a spotlight on me because everyone was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a prosecutor. I'm going to go into defense. I'm
Hmm.
going to into, contracts, whatever they said." And I
Yeah,
was just like, "Oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing here." Like, so it
yeah.
was almost like the opposite thing where I didn't have that good company to be like, "Okay, I guess I'll
Well, there
figure
were Yeah, I mean, there were definitely like half the class was like super driven, like, and I was driven, like I was driven. I wanted to do good things, but like it wasn't like I was born to be an attorney, and, like it wasn't a lifelong desire for me.
Yeah, I think looking back on that chapter of my life, I now think like, oh, nobody really has it figured out. They just kind of do a better job of like selling what they want to do for the rest
Exactly.
of their life.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah,
So
like
true.
it's totally cool to be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here right now, but I know I'm going to be here to learn something, and it's going to look respectable, like you said.
Right.
Did you know then when you were going through law school, like, was there a moment where you were like, I don't really know if law is the lifelong career for me, or were you just still just like, hey, I'm just going to see where this leads me?
Oh yeah, halfway through the first semester, I was like, nope, this is this is not for me. Although I will say I loved law school. I absolutely loved it. I would do it again. I would literally do it again because I loved it, and I love the learning and how your brain has to think about things and decipher information. But I knew, yeah, halfway through my first year that I was like, I do not think I'm going to practice law.
Yeah, that's so funny. It was literally after my first semester too. Same exact thing. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know if this is for me. But how did you deal with that then? Because you obviously like you finished the degree. So how did you deal with that or go through your classes knowing like maybe this isn't the career journey for me, but I'm going to do it anyway?
Yeah, I kept my options open, and and like I said, I really loved law school. So like it was like, how can you go wrong with all of this knowledge and making your brain think in certain ways? And having a law degree in my back pocket is never going to be a bad thing. It's not going to hurt. And then I even took the California bar and passed the bar because I still wanted to just keep my options open, because I'm like, but what if I do want to practice law? And so I kept the options open. Just I don't know. I like having options. So that just, it got me through. And I think just love of what I was learning really got me through school.
Yeah. I love that. California bar is tough too. So
It
you
was no
obviously
joke. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. So did you end up working in law at all after you graduated?
Not after I graduated. I did several internships while I was in school, but I had my first child during third year of law school. So the last 10 weeks of school, I had him and I had no childcare, and my husband lived 500 miles away. So I was bringing him to class with me. I took him across the stage at graduation. And
Awesome.
then I just wanted to stay home for a bit, before even thinking about working. And then I actually was interviewing for an attorney job when I found out I was pregnant with my second child. And I was like, no, this is not, this is not the path we're going on. Yeah.
Yeah. I love your mindset, Tammie. Like I can just tell that you're someone that it just feels like you took life in stride. Like you're like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn something from this chapter. So it doesn't really matter if this isn't like laying the groundwork for the rest of my life. Like you're gonna get something valuable out of it. And I think a lot of people kind of struggle mentally with that. Like I know when I was in law school, like I didn't know what I was going to do. And I maybe didn't have the emotional maturity at that time to be like, hey, this is going to be worth it in the end. Like I'm going to learn a lot, even if I don't do this forever. Like I really struggled with that concept of not knowing what was next. Like,
Yeah.
did you ever feel that way? Or or how did you get through like those moments of uncertainty that a lot of people struggle with?
Yeah. I have two things to say about that. One is I have massive trust in myself rather than necessarily having to have that result. So I know that I'm going to figure this out no matter what. And so even if I get to this certain point and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to go next, I trust that I'm going to be able to figure it out. So I don't need to have like all of the steps in front of me. So that's one part. The other part, I think, is I focus so much on process rather than the results. So like the process of law school was, I'm going to learn all this stuff and this way of thinking and this way of like, looking through a lot of information and finding the issue. And even if I don't practice law, like the specific result, the process of this has been so helpful. And I still actually use a lot of the ways of thinking that I learned in law school. I use those when I'm working with clients. Like they'll come and they'll brain dump for 20 minutes on a session. And I'm like, And then when they're done, I'm like, I know exactly what the issue is. I know like that exact sentence where we need to work on. And that's all from law school. So instead of like, this has to be about a law degree working in law, it's about, this is a whole new way of thinking and I'm going to be able to use this somewhere in the future. So it's like process driven rather than just result.
Yeah. Do you teach your clients how to use that same mentality when you're in your coaching sessions? Like, hey, you need to focus more on that process instead of just like the result or the brain dump moment when they're overwhelmed?
I like the brain dump. I think brain dumps are important, right?
Okay.
And I think part of having a coach or someone else to bounce off of is because they can help you like find the issue. But we do talk a lot about process versus just result. I mean, my whole thing is I teach about goals and like sustainable goal setting and sustainable goal getting. And I think a huge part of that is process versus just like the specific result and
Yeah.
what you're learning, who you're becoming on the way there. So
Yeah.
it does show up a lot that way.
I want to get more into your coaching stuff. Like, I want
Yeah.
to spend a lot of time there, obviously. But before we get there, I just kind of want to get a feel for like your transition out. You said you were pregnant. You found out you were pregnant with your second when you're interviewing for an attorney gig.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
happened from there? You got into coaching, running, and like you have all these other things that laid the groundwork for what you're doing now. So just take us on that journey.
Yeah. So after my second was born, we moved cross country, and we were in an area where I didn't really know a lot of people, and it's hard to be a young mom, well, a mom, any age mom, where you don't know a lot of people, and it can feel really isolating, and you can also feel really foreign in your own body. And I think especially as someone who was really athletic, your body sometimes doesn't feel like yours. And so I was trying to find a way that I could work while being a stay-at-home mom, because it was also really important to me to be there with my kids. So a job that I could do with them, and I wanted to have something to do with like fitness and bodies, and I wanted it to have something to do with like connection and communion with others. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I don't remember how I found out about stroller strides, but I found out about it. And I instantly signed up to own a franchise. So stroller strides are fitness classes you can do, moms do with their dads too, with their babies in the stroller. So you literally bring your kids in the stroller to class and you're like doing band work and you're doing like sprints away from the baby and back to the baby. So it's all, your kids are there, but you're getting fit and you're getting connected to other people. So it checked all those boxes. And I got to bring my kids to work. They sat in the stroller and they watched. And I think it's so important for these babies to see their moms being fit and getting out of the house and like moving their bodies. So it was just a win, 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 like for everybody involved. And then a lot of these moms knew that I was a runner, and they were like, we've never run before. Will you teach us how to do a 5K? And so I'm like, heck yeah, we're doing that. And so then it became, stroller strides and running coaching. And then by then my kids were old enough to be in the running program at their school. And because I had not great experiences running as a child, I was like, I'm weaseling my way in there to be their coach at their school, because I want this to be a really fun experience for all the kids involved. And so then that started me into running coaching. And then my husband is also a runner. We met at Carolina. He's also a coach. And so together, he and I started a business where we had camps and running programs and track workouts for the community and long runs for the community. We had things like almost every day of the summer that were all running related. And so a lot of my coaching came from there. And then, then I just kept coaching, and it went from there.
Yeah, it seems like the through line through this journey was really like community was a huge thing for you, and making sure that people had fun. Like, when did you really feel like you had that moment of like, oh, I'm good at uplifting others, or, oh, this is something that really interests me, I want to kind of pursue this as a career?
Yeah. I think I realized it pretty quickly into stroller strides. And I think a lot of it comes from, I was the oldest of 6 kids, and I'm 16 years older than the youngest.
Wow.
And for a lot of that time, my mom was in med school and then residency and then starting her own private pediatrics practice. So I babysat my siblings all summer, right? And I babysit all through middle school, high school, college. I even was babysitting in law school. So I've always been like uplifting, even though they're like kids, but like uplifting other people and helping them feel successful and helping them feel seen and loved and heard. And so I think that kind of like older sibling babysitter background kind of also helped lead me to be in coaching. And I think also combining like, what did I not get as an athlete from coaches that I would want, and what do I wish I had, and I wanted to be that for other people. And so that really informed a lot of my coaching too. And so in stroller strides, I feel like I really honed in on like, what do people need? How can I lift them and connect them and help them be better than even they thought they could be? And then I think just year after year after year, I learned so much from feedback and from really paying attention and listening to the people I was coaching, that they really get the credit for helping me be a good coach.
I love that. I think it's so important now to, one, keep kids in sports. Like, you wanted to make it fun for them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes adults ruin things that should be fun and uplifting for kids.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's great that you had the mindset of being like, I know what I needed when I was in this position, and you can maybe reflect on great mentors that you had, or like fill the gaps that your mentors did not have. I think about that too. Like, I was very fortunate in high school, middle school to have great coaches that were uplifting, but
Great.
I saw it happen the opposite when I went into coaching with other teams, or things where I thought, where I wish that those kids maybe had a different experience. And I think it can really turn a lot of people off and make them shy away from sports, or not give them the lessons that make them really resilient adults, like you said in the beginning, because they don't have that mentorship and that training at an early age.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It was my mission. It still is my mission.
Yeah. I love that. So let's talk about, it still is your mission. You've really been on coaching over the last 5, 6 or so years, coaching women, and you still coach running. So tell me about this chapter. What really inspired you to go like, I'm going to go all in on this coaching thing?
Yeah. It was during the pandemic. So I, at that time, was running coaching, but we weren't allowed to meet with people. So I couldn't meet with my athletes in person. So then it kind of turned into Zoom. And so then I'm like, oh, coaching is totally doable by Zoom. And we really focused a lot on the mindset part of it. At that time, I also had my stationery business, and I was, selling stationery across the country. And there was a day I will never forget. I spent like 10 hours packaging orders. So putting cards into envelopes and stacking them and putting them in shipping packages, all the things. And I'm like, this is not the impact I want to have on the world. Like, this is great. And I love seeing my products in stores, but this is not feeling that connection and that human interaction that I want. Like, I'm all alone in a room packing boxes. And so I'm like, I want, it was scary to take the leap because I was doing well in stationery. I was making money, like it was successful. And I was coaching, but a lot of that wasn't paid coaching. So I'm like, can I take this leap from this paid job into something that I'm not really getting paid for yet? And can I just say goodbye to like a successful thing and say yes to a, like, I don't know if this will be successful. And, but I just needed that human interaction and connection so much that it would just help me take the leap. And so, I started really focusing on mindset and mental performance coaching at that time.
Yeah. I want to ask you, there's so many questions I want to go from here actually, but I just think it's so cool. You like literally what you just said, like I was making money in stationery.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but there was like that feeling where you're like, this isn't exactly like, it felt a little off probably. Like this isn't the impact I want to make. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like a lot of people, I don't want to leave this good thing I have going because it kind of is comfortable. It gives me the lifestyle that I'd like, but even when they feel like something's really off. So I'm sure you have to coach people on that in your coaching business now.
It's what I do all the time.
Yeah. So like, how are you coaching them through that discomfort?
Yeah. So then this is again where that self-trust comes into play, right? So it's like, I don't know for certain that I'm going to make enough money in coaching, but I do know that I can figure it out. And if I'm not making enough money, then I'll be able to figure out, well, what do I do to make more money, make this sustainable? How do I find more clients? How do I help more people? And so it really comes down to knowing what you want and then trusting yourself that you will figure out how to make it happen. And I believe that everybody, if they can be honest with themselves about what they want, they can figure out how to make it happen. And I believe that about myself, and I did.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I just think back to my brain 10 years ago and really being like, I don't know. Like, how do you even like strike the first match for someone that's like, I really don't know what I want? Like, how do they figure that out?
Yeah. I have an exercise that I think we're going to talk about called the universe's Drive-Thru. So that's one exercise that I do with my clients. But I think we have to start from sort of a place of almost like compassion and understanding for why our first instinct is to say like, I don't know what I want. I don't know. I have no idea. Because that's usually what people say when I ask them. And so I think, first of all, just having this understanding of we've had decades where we were judged and deemed successful by how well we met the standards set by our teachers or our parents or our coaches or our team or our community leaders, right? And so in all that time of us trying to be the good girl, the good performer, the good student, the good employee, in all of that, us trying to do that, a lot of times we have told our inner wishes, our inner voice to be quiet, hush, that doesn't make sense. That's not responsible. That won't succeed. Like that's a bad idea. That's too much, whatever. And so after decades of us shutting down this inner voice, telling us what we want, we sort of like lose connection there. And then inner voice is like, I'm not answering you anymore. And so then when all of a sudden we're like, hey, inner self, what do you want to be doing right now? How do you want to spend your time? Inner self is like, you think I'm answering you? You've been telling me to be quiet for like literally decades. And they're like, I don't even know how to answer you anymore. I don't even like want to answer you anymore. So I think us first just understanding like, and not like being upset with ourselves for not knowing what we want. I think that's the first step, is just that compassion and understanding like, well, yeah, it makes sense. I wouldn't know what I want right now because I haven't asked myself in 20 years and I haven't let myself answer. So I think that's the first step.
It really is like a practice. Like, you've silenced that inner voice for so long. It's like, you got to re-engage with yourself again. That's really uncomfortable and hard too.
Yeah. And so then you start like rebuilding that relationship, right? And you're like, hey, inner self, what do you want for dinner? Like just a really simple decision, which for me is like the hardest decision ever. Like that's way harder than like any other decision. I should have picked a different example. Like, what do you want to watch on Netflix? That's easier. That's still hard. But to like ask yourself like a simpler, easier, safer question. And then whatever inner self wants to watch, then you honor and go, heck yeah, that's what we're watching. And so just reestablishing that like question and answer and trust and honoring, I think is really, that's how you do it, one little step at a time. And that's what we do with my clients too, is like, let's start small. Let's ask for like little things about what you want. And then we'll build and build upon that once you've like reestablished that connection with your inner self. And once you trust each other again to answer and like hear each other, and then it becomes so much easier.
Yeah, it's like the little things first is like really what's going to lay the groundwork towards those big things. It's so hard to be like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Or
Right.
when you're like, I don't even know what I want for dinner tonight. So
Yeah.
like those little things are so important. And it's so important, I think, to like celebrate when you actually like listen to those little things.
Yep.
As athletes, like I just know myself, I'm hard on myself. Like, and I think that's
Yeah.
probably I'm sure a lot of the women you work with are the same exact way. And it's like hard to celebrate the little things because you're like, well, that wasn't good enough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm working on that myself. So I can't imagine, like, that's probably just so common that you see that.
Yeah. But the reason it's important to do that is it is a learned skill to celebrate things. So because if you haven't learned that skill, no matter how big your accomplishment is, if you haven't learned the skill of like celebrating yourself, then it's never going to be good enough, big enough, and you're never going to celebrate yourself. Like you could literally win an Olympic gold medal, and if you haven't learned to like celebrate yourself, you'll be like, yeah, but I didn't get a world record. And you're like, oh my gosh, right? And so it is a skill that you learn. And how do you learn skills? By practicing over and over and over and over. So it is just practicing every little thing and celebrating and learning the skill of self-celebration.
Yeah. What are some tangible ways that people can start to celebrate themselves? Like, do they have to write it down, or like, how do you coach people through that?
Yeah. So in my sessions, every single session, I make them start with a win, something good that has happened in their life in the past week. And then here's the really important piece of it. How did they make it happen? So connecting the dots back from this good thing that happened, connect the dots back to them to how they created it. So they might say like, well, I went for a great run today. Okay, well, how did you get that to happen? And they're like, well, it was good weather. And I'm like, no, it's good weather for millions of people and they're not all out running. So don't give credit to the weather. Give credit for you for getting your ass off the couch, putting on your running shoes, putting on your watch or whatever, and going outside and running. And so connecting the dots back to how they created that win. So if you don't have a coach that's doing that with you, then that's something you can do for yourself. And I give this homework a did it list instead of a to-do list. And so every night before you go to bed, literally just write down one thing that you are like proud of that you did. And it doesn't have to be like an accomplishment, an external thing. It can be, I'm really proud that I said no to my neighbor when they invited me over to a party that I didn't want to go to, right? It can just be anything that you're like, hey, I did that today. To just start cataloging that, first of all, you're doing way more than you give yourself credit for. And then also that's that one more rep of practice of like noticing something that you did and giving yourself credit for it. So that's an assignment that I give to so many people.
I absolutely love that. I just wrote that down. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to go put a note next to my bed and do that because I actually like vulnerable moment. Like I said to like literally last night before bed to my husband, I said, some days I just feel like I'm all like my narrative in my head is like, you didn't do enough today. Like you
exactly. Yeah.
Like I actually like think that to myself before I put my head on my pillow. And I recognize that like, that is damaging. Like that is not good because that is also not true. It's just you're coming from a place of lack there. And how are you going to get better? How are you going to create the life you want when you're constantly coming from that place of lack? So I think that's like a really great exercise just to like, for me to see it, to write it down and be like, oh, wait a minute. No, I actually did a lot today. Like I actually do things today.
Yeah. I mean, in 2019, I started my podcast exactly for that reason. I used to literally put my head down on the pillow every night and start into this like trash self like session of like, you didn't do this. You're not living up to your potential. You used to do so many great things. Now you're doing nothing. You didn't do it. Like just this horrible like torrent of like abuse basically. Right. And every single night I was going to bed that way. And so that's why I started my podcast with this kind of coaching and teaching, because I didn't want anyone else to suffer the way that I was suffering for no need. Like we're really good people doing a lot of really good stuff in the world. There's no need for this like self beat down. So anyway, that's one of the reasons and times when I started that practice, because like before you go to bed, the last thing you're telling yourself is something that you did well and that you're proud of yourself for. And it just makes the whole experience of life better, really.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, it's so life is not fun when you're beating yourself up.
No.
Know this, but why do we do this? It's like it really is a negative cycle that you have to practice to break.
Yeah.
And so you started the podcast, Show Up Society. You is it just like so you can get your coaching message out to more people and so you can really start to help them like with these topics that we just talked about, or do you have other themes that you tend to cover on the show?
It's pretty much what we just talked about, like
Yeah.
things that have helped me and helped my clients, just different ways of like reframing and changing how you're thinking about things. And they're usually like really short episodes because I have, short attention span and I'm just like,
ADHD.
quick. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, for sure. I'm like, here you go, in and out, we're done. But just like because I want to just help as many people as I can not do this to themselves because we don't deserve it. And yeah.
I absolutely love that too. And there's so many like forms of media that we can consume now that are just fueling our negativity in our
I
life.
know.
Like, I feel like there's more negativity than positivity. And I
Yeah.
catch myself in that cycle. Like your brain almost is like, ooh, I want to listen to the gossip podcast when it's
Right.
like, is that actually going to break any like negative cycles in my own life? Probably not.
Right. I know.
Yeah, like making the choice to go for positive media, I think is really, really, it's like you have to make a conscious decision to do it, but it's so impactful when you start to
Yeah.
flood your life with those positive messages.
Yep. Yep.
So tell me about the universe's drive-through. You mentioned it
Okay.
earlier, so I want to hear about that exercise because I think this is cool.
Yeah. So this goes back to helping people figure out what they want, right? And so I've used this exercise with clients for so many different things, like finding a new job, finding a new partner, picking a new product for their product line. It can be used for anything. And so what I tell people is imagine that you're like pulling up to this drive-through and you're placing an order for what you want. So let's take job, for example. And the more specific you get, the more the universe can kind of answer you and give you what you want. So this is a little bit woo-woo, but it's also pretty practical. So let's say if you pull up and you're like, yeah, I want a job that like pays me a lot of money, like a lot of money. First of all, the universe is like, how much money is a lot for you? Because like, there's very different amounts that count as a lot for people. But also like, what if they give you a job like, can I say bad words on here?
Yeah, you can say bad words.
Okay. Like shoveling shit. You get paid a lot, but do you want to shovel shit for like tons of money? Maybe not. And so I think that's such a crass example, but like sometimes that just works really well to just give a crass example.
I know exactly what you mean when you say that.
Right.
Mark.
Right. And so I have them say like, okay, what topics do you enjoy? What values do you have? How much money do you want to make? How do you want to have healthcare included? Do you want benefits? Do you want weekends off? Do you want to work in the summers? What type of people do you want to work with? Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to be on a team? Do you want to be individual? Do you want to work from home? Do you want to work from an office? I mean, like really, really granularly specific about what you want. And at first, this exercise is pretty hard for people because they're like, oh, I don't know. And I think one of the reasons this is hard is because it's sort of like backwards from how a lot of people teach about job hunting. So a lot of people teach about job hunting, or what we think that we should do is go on LinkedIn or Indeed or somewhere and look for the jobs available and then see how we can like kind of shape ourselves to fit into that and apply for that job, which is great and that works. I like the approach of let's see what you want and let's make all the requirements for a job that you want. And then you go and see what out there fits me. They're trying on for me, right? Does this job fit my requirements? Because first of all, if it doesn't exist, then you can go create it. I've had people literally create CEO level, like C-level jobs because just based on what they wanted, it didn't exist yet. So they went and they said, hey, I would really like to do this. This is, these are my skill sets that I bring. And they literally invented a position for her in C-level suite. So
that's cool.
So it's either out there and you can find it knowing what you want, or you go create it. You talk to people, you open up a network, you create it. But I think the reason why this is so important is because then it's so sustainable and it's what you want and it fills your needs and you're going to be way better at a job that feels aligned to you and feels like it fits your requirements. But if you don't really know what those are, it's going to be really hard for you to find that dream job that really fits you if you don't even know what it is you want. And so I think, it's almost like crazy magic. The clients that I've had that have done this exercise, they literally get these jobs that are like, I never could have dreamed this was even an option for me. because they were so clear about what they wanted. And then you start to, it's like the universe throws this magic in your way. Like, let's say you have this whole list of what you want, and then you go out for like a coffee chat with one of your friends and you're just talking about it. And they're like, oh my gosh, there's literally, I know someone who has a job like this that has an opening. It's like crazy portals of magic open up. And I'm not trying to get really woo woo here, but it's like, there is something to it when you're very, like on paper, bullet point list of what you want. Opportunities open up all over the place. So that's the exercise. Get as really specific. Yeah.
I do believe it. Like like you said, maybe woo woo for some people. Like, I don't know. I'm call me woo woo then, because I do believe in exactly that. I think when you are so authentic to who you are, and I love when people are unapologetic about it too. Like, so much of society is like, like you said, like, you need to fit into this box. So like, change what you want so it's more in line with what we have to offer. But it's like, you know what? No, I'm going to be authentic to myself, because I know that that's what's going to bring fulfillment in my life.
Right.
And also, what your non-negotiables are when you do that.
Exactly.
And so you're going to find something that's so much more in line with what you're looking for. And that does bring that fulfillment. And man, like, I look back at my life and I'm like, I should have started that practice a bit earlier, because you just wouldn't have maybe compromised some of your values as much, or what you care about, to fit into that box, because it never works out anyway when you do that.
Right. In the long run, yeah. And then that's when the clients come to me when they're like 40 and 50 years old, and they're like, I've been doing this job that like I thought was so responsible, and maybe they liked it at first, but they're so burnt out because they're having to force themselves to like do this job that they actually don't like at all. And so then that's when they come to me and we do this work and we find something that they actually really do like. But yeah.
So if somebody's listening right now that is stuck in that transition, and maybe they were that person in that job for a long time that liked it at first, don't know what they want to do, or maybe they just are very unaware right now, what advice would you give them to start?
I really do think that universe drive-through exercise is super helpful. And at first you might have like 3 bullet points. Like, you might not know a lot. That's okay. I think being gentle with yourself and just asking kind of repeatedly, give yourself a couple weeks or a couple months to like figure it out. I like to ask myself questions before I go on a run or a walk. And like, it's something about like moving your body, I think opens up your mind a little bit and helps you just like answer questions a lot better. So just keep the practice of gently asking yourself, what might I want to do? Or phrasing it this way, like, if it all worked out, if I knew guaranteed it was going to work out, what would I want to be doing right now? And because sometimes that's the scary part is people are like, but I don't know if it would work out. But if it did, would you want to? And then we can work on making it work out. So I think just continually, gently asking yourself, what do you want? If it could all work out, what would it be? And then really start to listen to your answers and like not poo-poo them away, not say like, that's not responsible enough, that doesn't make enough money, that doesn't exist. Just really let yourself answer honestly. And then the next step is to figure out how to make it happen. But first you have to like let the answers come out.
Yeah. Tammie, this has been such a great episode. I feel like all of our listeners, including myself, I have so many tangible things to take away from this episode, and how to think about your future and think about what you want. So I really appreciate your time. I just have one final question for you. The namesake of the show, Changing the Game, I just like to ask everyone, what does that phrase mean to you in this chapter or season of your life?
To me, changing the game means changing how we talk to ourselves, and knowing that we can create success by being kinder to ourselves. And that feels like changing the game to me, because I feel like so many of us were raised and taught on the like pedal to the metal, no pain, no gain, you have to suffer if you want to succeed kind of mentality. And so I really feel like changing the game is changing the whole mentality about how we create success. And I do believe that it's possible to create it with more kindness and compassion to ourselves. And I like, that's kind of where like I'm on that mission to change the game about how especially women, I think, talk to themselves, and that we can do both. We can succeed and be kinder to ourselves.
Well, you're doing great work, Tammie. I really appreciate your time. And thank you
so much.
Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, find me at showupsociety.com or on Instagram, showupsociety.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week. And Tammie, it's been great. I can't wait to keep following your journey and see all the lives that you are changing, and listen to your show, Show Up Society podcast.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jordan.
Thank you.